evening, and welcome back to the weird and the wonderful with Strange Bones. That's me. Welcome. And we have another fine evening for checking out the strange, the mysterious, the supernatural, and the paranormal. All of those creepy things that may or may not go bump in the night. All the cool stuff. And I'm looking forward to tonight. I think it's going to be a good one, and in honor of one of my good friends, we have decided that we are taking a specific choice of area to look at today. As you know, if you've been following my live, that we go to different cultures and countries around the world to look at the different views of different things, strange, mysterious, supernatural, and more. And we are currently checking out Aliens and seeing what is to be found. We've done a couple of good ones, but for tonight, we are going to head off to Canada to see what they have to say about UFOs and aliens and possible abductions and more. And we can decide for ourselves whether or not any of this sort of thing is in any manner or form true or not. We shall see. But as we progress, I'm going to start you off by reminding you that on this particular channel, we are very much believers that you should have your own opinion, that you can agree or disagree as you feel is fit. You may believe or disbelieve as you feel is fit. However, we have one rule which we do expect you to stick to, and that is be polite. If you are rude or disruptive, we will give you the immortal boot. Because after all, we have a lot of different people from a lot of different places that join in on the channel, different cultures and different views of things, and we respect that. That being said, we are going to also encourage you to like, share, subscribe, do all of the good things that allow us to keep this channel going and doing what it is that we do. And I do very much hope that you enjoy what we do and will enjoy this evening's topic. So the general topic at the moment, as I say, is aliens. We like aliens. Aliens are cool. But that said, specifically, we are going to do Canada, if you will. And as we progress with this topic, we shall see what things are said to lurk in the skies above. And perhaps we shall learn something, or not. We'll find out. Now, as we begin, there's a few things that we discovered. Many thanks for the likes there. That is hugely appreciated, and hopefully your kindness will extend to encouraging all the others as well, that they also might drop a like or two. So, Canada, big country, and at least from what I've seen of it in videos from friends that are now living there, while the cities are large and well filled with people, there are huge open spaces with a great deal of emptiness, which therefore implies that there's a lot of space around for aliens to lurk, which may or may not be a good thing. So there is a history of, as we know, we are not supposed to call them UFOs. No, the modern phraseology for the professional ufologist is a UAP, which is an unidentified aerial phenomena, which is therefore of higher quality than the standard unidentified flying object. And of course, as you well know, I don't care because they're both in the sky and they are unidentified, which is kind of the point. Now, from what we are told, the Canadian government stopped collecting reports on UFOs in 1995. But nevertheless, a recent report from the Sky Canada project, led by the country's chief science advisor, recommends the establishment of a standardized federal body to manage and investigate UFOs. This recommendation stems from a growing public interest, increased reporting, and a recognition of the need for a more coordinated and scientifically driven approach to studying the phenomena, which I suppose is reasonably fair. I cannot deny the fact that as we have progressed with the different places around the world, while some of the stories are pretty good and very believable, there is no lack of ones which are really and truly a big joke. And you can tell that there was a touch of, shall we say, assistance to the mind in the person that allegedly saw it. So, and of course, hoaxes are perpetrated all the time. So a good scientifically driven approach would be great. And perhaps we would be able to get some serious answers, which I think is one of the points to any kind of investigation. Is it real or is it not? And does it matter to us? Of course it matters to us because we want to know. Now, there is a significant number of UFO sightings reported annually in Canada, with estimates ranging from 700 to 1,000 per year, which is pretty high. I mean, yeah. Sightings are reported by a wide range of individuals, including, and this is also something that is kind of important, pilots, police officers, military personnel, and the general public. Now, the reason that I'm going to throw it out there that this is important is certain people's professions, in general at least, tend to bring the sort of person that is fairly stable and reliable and not the crazy type, which means that if you can get reports from one of these more serious type people, it's more likely to be believable in that regard. Shall we say that? I think that's fair to say. So absolutely, we are going to have to say that who does the reporting matters, which helps. A notable increase in sightings have been observed following recent events, such as the downing of unidentified objects over North America. Now, there's a topic that automatically makes you ask questions. What was downed? Why was it downed? And Is there anything that we can learn about that, or is it going to be covered up? Because, of course, with all of these things, immediately you're going to get conspiracy theories right off track, some of which are reasonable, to be fair, and some of which are really you're conspiracizing for the sake of it. Yes, I made that up. Some suggest that increased awareness and reporting are due to greater interest, which is neither a bad thing nor unlikely, at least in part. Historically, the Canadian government investigated UFOs from the 1950s to the 1995, with various departments and agencies collecting reports. Now, one of the main reasons for these investigations, which is quite understandable, was the fears inspired by the Cold War, though it did later evolve into a more scientific approach. The investigations, of course, ended due to budget cuts. Now, the Sky Canada project, launched 3 years ago, is a UAP research effort led by the chief science advisor to the Canadian government. Now, I laugh at the UAP thing, but the idea of a genuine scientific person setting something up to properly investigate this kind of thing, I think is absolutely fantastic. Right off bat, this is good. Now, the report emphasizes the need for a standardized and centralized system for UFO reporting and investigation. It suggests the creation of a proper body, all good stuff, and it highlights the importance of transparency, public education, and dispelling misinformation about UFOs, which is great. Now, there are, of course, a couple of quite notable cases, which I think is a wonderful thing because usually when it is notable, there is more information on it, which is exactly what we are looking for. There is the Falcon Lake incident in 1967, which is one of Canada's best documented cases. There is more to this case because in it, a man reported actually being burned by a UFO and encountering a strange object. Two good bits of detail there. The incident was investigated by a number of different authorities, including the Royal Canadian Mounted Police and the Condon Committee. I don't know what they are. We will find out as we go, I hope. While the case was absolutely an intriguing one, there are a number of skeptical people who have given their views on what happened, one of which was that there was a fair amount of alcohol consumption, and that's partly the problem, which could be. I don't know, and I dare say we shall find out as we progress. Now, Canada has a rich history of UFO sightings and related investigations with the public interest supporting this. So hopefully in future we will do better. But as we begin, we are going to point out that this is all alleged till proven, of course. We can't help with that. And remember that just because it is a UFO, it doesn't necessarily mean it's an alien. There are all kinds of things out there, and deciding what they might actually be is part of the whole examination. There are those who say that what we think are UFOs are not at all, but rather spirits, ghosts, demons. Who knows? So let's find out what we can. So, we shall also point out that according to a memo written by the Department of National Defense, sightings of unidentified flying objects in Canada have occurred throughout the first half of the 20th century, but nevertheless, it was only around 1947 that actual information was collected, which basically means that a lot of the stuff is only kept up in local legend and story rather than actual report, just so we know. And it means that also a lot of things have been lost. But in 1951, in Gander in Newfoundland, February 10th, in fact, a US Navy aircraft flying from Iceland to Gander reported a near collision with a large orange circular UFO that almost literally flew circles around the American aircraft. Now, this is interesting to me for a couple of reasons. We absolutely do know that flying saucers are hardly uncommon, in stories at least, and that they are all said to be able to move a great deal faster than your standard aircraft that we know. And this being back in 1951, the aircraft that was not great. But nevertheless, this is the first time that we have encountered one that is specifically orange. Usually they tend to be silvery for some reason. Now in 1960s in Clan Lake in the Northwest Territories, June 18th, a prospector told the Yellowknife Royal Canadian Mounted Police Detachment that a month earlier he and his partner saw a UFO at Clan Lake, located about 30 miles north of Yellowknife. According to the ufologist Chris Rutkowski, the men claimed that they saw a hovering object 4 to 6 feet wide that hit the surface of the lake. The mounted police investigated, but they found nothing. Now, for those of us who didn't know, Yellowknife is the capital and the largest community and the only city in the Northwest Territories of Canada. It's on the northern shores of the Great Slave Lake, about 400 kilometers south of the Arctic Circle, on the west side of Yellowknife Bay near the outlet of the Yellowknife River, which means it is far north and probably damned cold. Maybe the UFOs in Canada are orange so they don't get lost in the snow. Now, in 1967 at Falcon Lake in Manitoba, we have the most famous of the incidents that we can talk about. Stefan Michalak claimed that he was burned by one of 2 flying saucers with which he reportedly came into contact with on May 19th, 1967. And ufologists claim that images of Michalak in the hospital show a grid of burn marks on his chest, and a similar grid appears burned into his t-shirt. Ufologists considered it to be one of the most documented UFO stories in the whole of Canada. Now, a grid pattern burned in, that immediately looks interesting, and a huge welcome to Endless Thoughts, my favorite friend who has joined us again. I hope you do get to stay a little longer tonight. And of course, if you can, you are massively welcome to join in on the live. And huge thanks for the likes, and very much for the heart as well. That is very, very kind of you. Endless Thoughts is, for the rest of you, a regular on this channel and always comes up with the most interesting ideas and comments. And while we do not always agree on what might be the case of things, nevertheless, it makes for amazing conversation, which is wonderful, and we appreciate it greatly. So just for you, Endless Thoughts, we are doing Canada, and we're about to start on the Falcon Lake incident, which is a particularly good one and well explained. So we've got this guy who claims he was burned, and indeed he was, but he claims he was burned by a UFO. And this happened in 1967 at Falcon Lake. So now, there have been 2 books written on the whole thing, if you are very interested in this. But Skeptic Aaron, this is a good name for you, Sakulich? I may have ruined that, but we shall go with it. Reviewed the report made by Michalak to police shortly after the incident, along with other evidence, and concluded that Michalak was indeed burned. Well, yes, he was in hospital. I'm just saying, that wasn't a big jump. But that his burns were likely caused by an accident brought on by alcohol consumption, and that Michalak, who was prospecting for silver ore near the lake at the time, probably made the story up to keep other prospectors out of the area. It sounds as if this gentle being might possibly be just a touch on the sour side. Not sure about that. We shall have to see. Nevertheless, as we progress, let's see what other interesting things can be brought in on this specific. Now, April 2018, the Royal Canadian Mint released a silver $20 coin depicting the event, which gives us nothing. But according to Stefan Michalak's account, 2 glowing objects descended from the sky on May 20 near Falcon Lake, where one landed close enough for him to try to approach. When the craft suddenly took flight, the emission sent Michalak's clothes ablaze, leaving him with mysterious burns. Didn't really give a great deal in that regard. I think we really do need a little bit more than just that, because after all, saw a UFO, got burnt, went to hospital. Not exactly a lot of detail for us there. So let's have a look. So according to the Steve Michalak, who said that the flying saucers that he saw were indeed saucers and disc-shaped. Great. We are happy with that. Now we've got something. Here we go. So the Falcon Lake incident that occurred within the Whiteshell Provincial Park in the Canadian province of Manitoba Unlike typical UFO reports, the lone witness, Steve Michalak, claimed to hear human voices and said the craft was man-made, and claimed that the burns he received were caused by its exhaust. Initially telling police that he was burnt by a spaceship, he later changed his story to say it was a man-made aircraft, and this prompted investigations by both law enforcement and the military. Hey, Karina. Oh, okay, Endless Thoughts. Please come back quick. We like having you around. Get some coffee while you're doing it, though. And huge welcomes to Karina. Yes, we are doing Canada, and we are looking at the Falcon Lake report. So, all of your UFOs. So, despite agreeing not to disturb the site, Michalak unexpectedly gave authorities objects he claimed he had collected. While some of these objects tested positive for low-level radioactivity, chemists suggested the objects might have been contaminated with substances like radium-based paint, which was accessible at the time. In 1968, Michalak told the press his burns had returned, and they photographed a grid-like pattern of marks on his abdomen that bore little resemblance to his earlier burns. A psychiatrist concluded that the new wounds were likely self-inflicted. In 2017, his son was quoted as saying, "If Dad hoaxed this, remember we're talking about a blue-collar industrial mechanic. If he hoaxed it, then he must have been a freaking genius." Fair enough. Okay, so going back to the beginning, 1967, May 20, Steve Michalak reported to a passing member of the Highway Patrol that he had been burned by a spaceship. Later that night, he sought medical treatment for first-degree burns. 2 days later, he contacted the press, and the resultant media coverage triggered multiple civilian and official investigations in both Canada and the United States. May 23, a civilian UFO investigator photographed Michalak's torso, showing typical burns that are irregularly shaped and unevenly spaced. We do have a picture of this, and I will put it up in a little bit, so you can also have a look and see what you think. Though he had promised not to disturb the site, he reported to authorities that he had returned to the supposed landing site and collected artifacts, including a burnt shirt, steel tape, and a soil sample. After a soil sample provided by Michalak tested positive for potentially dangerous levels of radioactivity, Michalak led authorities to the landing site. Trace amounts of radiation were found, suggestive of a natural radium vein or perhaps contamination by luminescent radium paint, but nothing dangerous was detected. Near the end of 1967, he published his story in a booklet. The following January, he again contacted the press and photographed of Michalak with a grid of uniform, evenly spaced marks on his abdomen, which he described as burns that had come back. A Mayo Clinic psychiatrist said that his lesions were diagnosed as obviously factitial, which basically, and in English for us ignorant types, a factitious disorder is a mental disorder in which a person without a malingering motive acts as if they have an illness by deliberately producing, feigning, or exaggerating symptoms purely to attain a patient's role. People with a factitious disorder may produce symptoms in a number of different ways. So basically, they're saying that he did it to himself in order to appear that he had a sickness or injury. And by the way, huge thanks to Karina for the donut. We like donuts. Donuts are good. Now, the spaceship report. On May 20th, 67, Constable G.A. Solotki of the Falcon Beach Highway Patrol was driving on the Trans-Canada Highway at around 3 p.m. when he was flagged down. Michalak warned the constable not to approach too close, citing fears of spreading a skin disease or radiation. According to a police report from just days later, Michalak, a 50-year-old mechanic, reported having seen two spaceships that glowed red and rotated. He claimed that he had touched the craft and that his hat and shirt had been burned. He refused to show the officer the burned shirt, claiming it was in the briefcase he carried. Solotki witnessed a burn on the hat, but not on Michalak's head. Michalak showed marks that Solotki said appeared to be consistent with rubbing ash on the skin. While Michalak claimed he had been prospecting, Solotki noticed that he had no camping or prospecting equipment nor a vehicle. He reported that Michalak had been on a drunk and was suffering from a hangover. Solotki's report notes that he didn't smell alcohol on Michalak and that he offered to help Michalak return and seek treatment at Falcon Beach, what was declined. Okay. Returning home to Winnipeg by means of the Greyhound bus, that night Michalak was treated for first-degree burns as an outpatient at the Misericordia Health Center. Now, just because I said I would, and in order to show you all, these are the burns that apparently were received, and you may make of them as you will. And should you feel that they are insufficient evidence, as it were, do let me know. But nevertheless, so behind me, yes, those are alien-caused burns on the body. So apparently, that is what was the case. So, are they real burns? Yes, they are. They were treated in a genuine hospital as first-degree burns. However, what caused them is the question. So Michalak contacted the Winnipeg Tribune and was interviewed at his home by reporter Heather Chisfin. The paper was subsequently published under the title "I Was Burned by a UFO," along with a photograph of the burns and Michalak posing with his drawing of the object he reportedly seen, a disc-shaped craft consistent with the classic flying saucer. On May the 23rd, papers throughout the region told of his report of having seen strange objects at Falcon Lake the prior Saturday. According to Michalak, one of the objects landed. He described the object as around 35 feet long and metallic. He said a door had opened, emitting a bright violet light, air hissing sounds, and voices that he said were definitely human. Michalak reported speaking to the craft in multiple languages without gaining a response. He was reportedly burned in a checkerboard pattern when the craft took off. Press quoted the family doctor as having examined the burns. He reported headaches, vomiting, rapid weight loss, and emitting a foul smell after his encounter. He claimed the craft left behind a circular indentation where grass and leaves had been removed. He presumed by the craft's heat. A burnt undershirt was photographed showing a grid-like pattern of marks on it, unlike his irregularly shaped burns. So we will therefore immediately, of course, have to put up a picture of the burnt shirt, because that's what we do. Now, whether or not we are going to get anything out of this is another question entirely, but this is what the shirt looked like. So, there is the shirt with the alleged grid pattern thereon. So, I don't know, do you think that was a burn from an alien? Huge thanks for the likes. You guys are wonderful. Right, here we go. And we are on it, Endless Thoughts. Ta-da! So, in terms of, we have a burnt shirt and a claim by a single individual. I will agree with the comments that were made that the burns on the shirt are grid-like, but the burns on him are not. I don't know what that might mean. Endless Thoughts, did you get the invite? I hopes you did. Nevertheless. So the investigations were made by various people, including the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, the Royal Canadian Air Force, the Department of Health, the Department of National Defense, and American authorities, including the Aerial Phenomena Research Organization and the United States Air Force, as a part of the Condon Committee. Now, I don't know what the Condon Committee is, but let's see if we can find out. Okay, so this is the informal name of the University of Colorado UFO Project, a group funded by the United States Air Force from 1966 all the way up to 1968 at the University of Colorado to study unidentified flying objects under the direction of physicist Edward Condon. There we go. Now we know what it is and why. That is fair. So, perhaps if we did this correctly, it would work. Nevertheless, so this formal and government paid for research group. So Michalak was visited by J.B. Thompson from APRO, and he photographed the burns, which medical reports described as several round and irregular shaped burns about the size of a silver dollar. While Michalak claimed the burns were a grid caused by the UFO exhaust from evenly spaced holes, the photo shows them not to be so, which, fair enough, there you go. We agree with that part. He was interviewed in his home by two members of the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, and he reported having lost 13 pounds in 3 days since the incident due to nausea and vomiting, headaches, and a strange taste and smell. The officers witnessed the burns on his abdomen, likening the look to an exceptionally severe sunburn, but localized in one spot. He recalled his encounter with Constable Slotky and explained his unwillingness to show the officer his shirt by saying that he feared he had been exposed to radiation and didn't want to contaminate anyone. He explained his past unwillingness to provide a specific location, saying that he had discovered a high-quality nickel strike nearby and didn't want the location known, but he offered to escort the officers to the site when he was physically able to do so. Michalak showed the officers his burnt cap, melted grinder goggles, and burnt undershirt. The shirt was sent to a lab where it was tested for radioactivity, but none was found. A glove that was partially melted was given to UFO Group Representative J.B. Thompson. They conducted an aerial search and a ground search. They found objects Michalak had mentioned discarding that day, a shopping bag, an old saw he had found along the trail, but failed to find the supposed landing spot. Police interviewed employees at the Falcon Hotel who recalled that Michalak had in fact consumed several beers the night before the supposed incident. But Michalak had denied alcohol usage. Maybe it's true, maybe it ain't. There we go. Now, June 26th, Michalak contacted the Air Force to report that he, along with a partner, Gerald Hart, searched for the landing site over the weekend and located it. He had promised to bring investigators to the location, but now refused to cooperate, citing concerns about his mineral claim. While under instructions from authorities, he had previously agreed not to remove items from the site, but he did. The sample provided was tested and found to be highly radioactive. Officials swept his home for signs of radioactive materials, taking possession of the remainder of the supposed soil sample. In light of the laboratory showing potentially dangerous radioactivity, Michalak reportedly became suddenly fully cooperative, now agreeing to lead authorities to the supposed landing site. When he led them to the site, they noted a semicircle of removed moss. Trace amounts of radiation were detected in a crack in the rock, but the levels posed no danger to life. Chemists suggested radiation was due to contamination from commercially available radium-based luminescent paint. June 30, press reported that Michalak's case was being investigated by defense authorities amidst a rash of UFO reports in the area. Now, here we have a problem because you always get copycat sightings. And on the one hand, they might be true, But on the other hand, it might be because they're absolutely made up. So, which one is it, and how do we know? That becomes very difficult to say. So we're kind of at a bit of a difficulty in this one. Huge thanks to Endless Thoughts for the rose. It's very, very good of you. And encouragement to all of you to like, share, subscribe, and do all the good stuff there. Now, Michalak later read the RCMP to the reported landing site where they confirmed the presence of burnt vegetation. But it was reported afterwards that the defense minister, Leo Cadillo, said the government would not publicly release the report on the official investigation into the case, which is very disappointing. But they did write comics about it. Now, later on in 1968, he said that the burns returned once again, and he was photographed showing very uniform burns, not like the ones that we saw in the first instance at all. So these burns look totally different, and that makes it very strange. And they are different from what the medical personnel that treated him the first time what they described as seeing. Now, he was examined by a psychiatrist and said that there is no evidence of significant mental or emotional illness, but the lesions nevertheless are factitious, as we did say. Fair enough, fair enough, fair enough. There was a claim of metallic debris as well. Now, what does that mean? So, by November of 1968, papers reported on a piece of metal that Michalak said he found near the supposed landing site. Analyzed by a professional astronomer and researcher, Peter Millman, the material was found to be 95% silver, but very slightly radioactive on a level likened to a glow-in-the-dark wristwatch. Endless Thoughts, I don't see your comments. No, I don't see any of your comments. This is terrible. Why am I not seeing your comments? We love your comments and we want lots of your comments. What is stopping your comments from appearing? Because I want all your comments. This is bad because your comments are what help make this channel great for everybody. I'm looking back up the comment list. I'm checking all of it. I can see your name appear on occasion, but yes, I can and will do right now. I have tried inviting you 3 times already, and we want you on. So I don't know why it's being difficult, but we are going to keep trying until we damn well get you here, because it really does matter to us. So there is now a fair amount of concern that the whole thing is a complete hoax, and I can see why, which is fair enough. Skeptics say that the entire thing was made up. It didn't happen. He had an accident and got a bit burnt, was drunk, and there's reasonable amounts of things to say that this is the case. Pieces of melted radioactive metal were said to be planted after the event in order to get things going and to support the hoax. So some of the long-lasting effects, including the skin lesions, my thing says that you were invited. What is going on? I'm going to cheat and see if that works. And then we are going to add that and try that and see if that improves your life in that regard. And then we're going to have another go like that. We're just struggling, people, to get our good friend on live because we want to be able to do talkings. Okay, sent again and made a moderator. See if that helps. See if the network corrected you there, Endless Thoughts. I do hope it did. So I'm going to say the problem with this lot is that there's so many things that could be wrong, and I'm really starting to think that this one perhaps was fake. Now, some say that the long-lasting effects of his skin lesions were in fact an allergic reaction. And there were too many inconsistencies in this. So we got very excited about the possibility of this one being real. But alas, I am afraid, I think we have proved in this case that it really was a lot of rubbish. Sorry, but there are more to look at. Now, I'm very much hoping that my dear friend did get the invite that we sent. We live in hope. Hope, 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 hope. But nevertheless, moving along in the meanwhile, 1967, Shag Harbor, Nova Scotia. The incident was the purported crash of an unidentified flying object into the harbor. Whether or not it really did okay, sent it again, my dear. We are now going to check on whether or not we actually got an actual UFO crash. Now, Nova Scotia is a sort of spit of land out into the Atlantic Ocean with the Bay of Fundy on the one side. It's a small fishing village. I'm very much hoping that we manage to get the one I sent again. It's still valid, and you are in fact a moderator as well. do not know why it is being annoying. That's very sad. Is this okay, guys? Give me some help here. For some reason, each invite I'm sending for somebody to join my live here is not showing up. Where else can they find the live invite? Because I'm not managing to send it through. But I'm hitting the proper official button for multi-guest, and I'm saying, please send an invite. We very much want them on. I've sent it again. And I don't know why it's not going the way it should. This is very strange to me because it's never not worked before. I'm wondering if there is any kind of age restriction or whatever that may have blocked. But no, you're on the... That's weird. I don't understand what's going on at all. Anybody else out there? Donna, do you know? Delete cache. I don't even know what that means. Maybe there's a memory issue? Don't know, have you gone live on something else and not unlived it, or... I don't know. At least I'm seeing your comments now, which is a pretty good start. Donna, any comments? Anybody else, any comments? I don't know how to delete cache or anything like that either. You've got me there. But nevertheless, the Shag Harbor haven't been live yet or in a box. Are you living in a box? Are you living in a cardboard box? No, I don't know. It's very strange. I don't know quite what else to do. I'm honestly going to tell you that I have sent multiple invites and made you a moderator. So I don't know why it's not allowing you to join, which is very, very strange to me. It's a weird situation. I really don't know. We need intellectual people to give us advice as to why it might be that certain people are not able to join when we want them to, even though they're allowed to do so many other things. I do not understand this at all. And we very much want we want to have these people on, very much so. And did you try to respond to the first invite? Did it work? Because I mean, I can't send another invite till the invite I sent finishes. if that makes sense. It's timed. Buggery. Okay, try a log out and come back, because we really, really do want you here. Okay, so what was the Shag Harbour incident? These reports, by the way, were investigated by Canadian civilians and military agencies, which means the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, the Canadian Coast Guard, the Canadian Forces Navy, and the Air Force, as well as the US Condon Committee, which we know what that is. Absolutely. Now, before the incident occurred, before, a plane to Toronto while flying over Sherbrooke and Saint Jean, Quebec, at 3,658 meters from the Halifax International Airport, Air Canada First Officer Robert Ralph pointed out to Captain Pierre Charbonneau on Flight 305 that there was something strange on the left side of the aircraft at 7:15 in the evening. In his report, the captain reported an object tracking along on a parallel course a few miles away. He describes it as a brilliantly lit, rectangular object with a string of smaller lights trailing it. At 19 minutes past 7, the pilots noticed a sizable silent explosion near the large object. 2 minutes later, a second explosion occurred, which faded to a blue cloud around the object. What does that imply? I have no cooking clue. Nevertheless, Daryl Dorey and his sister KK and his mother were sitting on their front porch in Mahone Bay when they noticed a large object maneuvering above the southwestern horizon. The next day, he wrote a letter to the RCAF Greenwood Base commander asking what was flying over the water that evening, as he had never seen anything like it. That immediately is interesting because he didn't jump to any conclusions, he just asked the Air Force. We like that. While standing at the wheelhouse of his vessel, Captain Leo Howard Mersey was looking at 4 blips on his Decca radar that were stationary. When he looked up about 28 kilometers from the vessel's windows, he could see 4 bright objects situated in a roughly rectangular formation. The entire crew of nearly 20 fishermen stood on the deck and watched the object in the northwestern sky. Mersey radioed the Rescue Coordination Center and the harbor master in Halifax asking for an explanation, and filed a report with the Lunenburg RCMP outlining the sighting when he returned to port. Now, I love how these guys don't jump to any conclusions. They're very serious. They see something strange they don't know, and they report it and immediately ask, please, let us know what we are talking about. And I think that's an absolutely great way to do this. And we are asking Endless Thoughts if she managed to log out, log in, and reconnect. I do hope she has. So, the next thing, the Chronicle Herald and 2 local radio stations reported a glowing object that was seen by many people who called their newsroom. They reported witnessing strange glowing objects flying around Halifax at 10 p.m. So this is all leading up, if you will, to the event we are about to talk about. So yes, it's a bit of a long lead up, but it shows that a lot of people saw a lot of weird things. So now we finally, oh, dear Lord, get to the actual incident. On the night of the 4th of October 1967, at about 11:20 p.m. Atlantic Daylight Time, it was reported that something had crashed into the waters of Shag Harbour. At least 11 people saw a low-flying lit object head towards the harbour. Multiple witnesses reported hearing a whistling sound like a bomb, then a whoosh, and finally a loud bang. The object was never officially identified and was therefore referred to as a UFO in the Government of Canada documents. The Canadian military became involved in a subsequent rescue recovery effort. The initial report was made by local resident Laurie Wickens and four of his friends. Driving through Shag Harbour on Highway 3, they spotted a large object descending into the waters of the harbour. Attaining a better vantage point, Wickens and his friends saw an object floating 250 to 300 meters offshore in the waters of Shag Harbour. Wickens contacted the Royal Canadian Mounted Police detachment in Barrington Passage and reported that he had seen a large aeroplane or a small airliner crash into the waters. Fair enough, fair enough. Hello to Dot, and much thanks for the likes. Yes, all the rest of you, send lots of hearts. Like, share, subscribe, send presents so we can keep the channel going. We are supported by you good people. And by my dear friend Endless Thoughts, so I'm still trying to manage to get onto the guest, and I'm just not winning. Guys, what does it mean if you need to empty your cache? Please tell me, because that's apparently what is stopping my friend from joining the live. And I don't know what that means. Hello to Laptop. You are a wondrous person to join us. Now, they then went about making search and rescue efforts. Assuming an aircraft had crashed, within 15 minutes, 2 officers arrived on scene. That's damned fast. The topic is aliens, and the specific topic for tonight is UFOs and aliens in Canada. But welcome, welcome, and be sure that you are more than welcome to come and join us every night except Sunday night. And we normally start at 10 o'clock South African time. That's GMT +2, if that makes any sense at all. We do all things weird, wonderful, supernatural, paranormal, and we've been bouncing through different things. We've done ghosts, we've done cryptids, we've done curses. We are now doing aliens, and in future we have plans to do a number of other interesting things that have been asked to be looked at by varying people on the channel. So we are hoping for that. We are also trying very hard. I don't know if you know much about how it all works, but we've been trying to get one of our members to join on as a guest, and for some strange reason, they just cannot join on as a guest, and I don't know why. It worries me that they cannot. So do let me know if you know any secret tricks that allow people to join. Are we supposed to save the world or leave it? Well, that's an interesting question, actually. And before we go on with seeing what they investigated, let's just quickly turn to that for a second, because there's a number of arguments, I think, as to what the hell are they coming here for? Are they here because they want to conquer the planet? Are they here because they want to check we're not a threat to them? Are they just mildly curious? Is it incidental? Are they here to bring us ancient mythic wisdom to improve our spiritual reality? It seems that any and all of these could be answers. There's a lot of different versions, so I'm not entirely certain what their plans are. By and large, most of the ones we've covered thus far actually seem to be using Earth as a place to stop and refuel in some manner or form, however that might be being achieved. So it seems to be a matter of convenience more than anything, if that helps. What our role in all of this is gets a little bit more confusing. But when we get more towards the end of our alien investigation, I'm going to point out a couple of other things which I think you might find amusing, where we have stories that could be aliens or something else from around the world, where we have inconsistencies that don't make sense. But I'm going to have to work on that a bit, because I'll need to pull in a number of different images and things just to show you, because there are absolutely issues in that regard that we need answers and are not getting them. But huge thanks for the likes. As I say, I'm trying to figure out why I can't get my guest that was invited, good Lord, onto the channel to actually be on the channel. And I don't know why it isn't working. It worries me just a little bit in that regard, that it's not working, and saddens me greatly. Nevertheless, I have a small suspicion that something's gone wrong technologically somewhere, and that's what's doing the evil to all. So, having gone through that, now we've seen that obviously in Canada it works very different to this country. Within 15 minutes, there were officials on the scene. And there was a detachment as well that was contacting the Rescue Coordination Center in Halifax to advise them, ask them which aircraft might be missing and what passengers might be on. But the object, with lights still showing, started to sink and disappeared from view. So now this has been seen by the authorities. A rescue mission was quickly assembled, and within half an hour of the crash, local fishing boats went out to the crash site in the waters of the Gulf of Maine off Shag Harbor to look for survivors. No survivors, bodies, or debris was taken, either by the fishermen or by the Coast Guard search and rescue cutter, which arrived about an hour later from Clark Harbor, which is pretty fast. Now, we have a comment from Laptop that says that there are many aliens, and some have good intentions and others possibly not. I think that would be very reasonable as a viewpoint. I also don't think they're necessarily entirely physical. I think they might be comprised of sentient light, and that's why there's never anything left behind. But then it depends on the alien. I mean, according to things we've seen, there's a whole collection which includes reptilians, the greys, and more. I mean, if there's one kind, why shouldn't there be lots of kinds and have different views? And we do know that if we ever found an alien, we would probably shoot it. Have we ever heard of angels in disguise? Tell us about that. Okay, so it was then discovered that no aircraft were missing. The captain of the Canadian Coast Guard cutter received a radio message from Halifax that all commercial, private, and military aircraft were accounted for along the eastern seaboard in both the Atlantic province and New England. They also sent a priority telex to the air desk at Air Force headquarters in Ottawa, which handled all civilian and military UFO sightings, informing them of the crash and that all conventional explanations, aircraft flares, etc., had been dismissed. Therefore, this was labeled a UFO report. The head of the air desk then sent another priority telex to the Navy headquarters concerning the UFO report and recommended an underwater search be mounted. The Navy, in turn, sent another priority telex tasking Fleet Diving Unit Atlantic with carrying out the search. I've got to give some serious props to Canada at proper communication and efficiency. Okay, so Laptop tells us that some people we come across in our daily lives are not human, but aliens or angels in disguise. This is not an uncommon view. And there are those who claim, at least, that they have a reasonable amount of evidence that this is indeed the case, at least enough to prove it to themselves. I will tell you that I've met some really weird people that I've wondered about. Sometimes not seriously, sometimes quite seriously. So, sure, this is not unreasonable. And if you were seriously going to investigate another planet, the ability to somehow appear as normal to the planet would probably be a very good idea. Furthermore, one variety of apparently benevolent aliens are ones which are called the Nordics. And they're called the Nordics because they appear as normal human beings, blonde and blue-eyed, but they're actually aliens. So, make of that what you will. But nevertheless, you are quite correct in that regard. I'm really, really worried that we have somehow lost endless thoughts entirely, and that saddens me. Nevertheless, moving on. So they've taken this entire incident seriously. And unlike the Falcon Lake incident, which almost certainly was either a hoax or a drunken something or whatever, this is different. You've got serious people who seriously saw something. They didn't immediately go, I see me an alien. No, they saw a something and they responded to it as you would expect normal, serious type people to, which is great. Okay, they only concluded it with a UFO after all other explanations were dismissed. So, 2 days after the incident had been observed, a detachment of Navy divers from the Fleet Diving Unit Atlantic was assembled, and for 3 whole days they combed the seafloor of the Gulf of Maine off Shag Harbor, looking for an object. The final report said that nothing was found. Now, here's where it gets interesting to me. Number one, as I say, they responded to it being a crash with a search and rescue effort. They only concluded that anything was a UFO after they dismissed everything, which is good. It was done properly, professionally, and seriously. And it was seen by a lot of different people. That gives a lot of credence to the possibility of this particular incident really being something. Okay? The reports are merely that the object crashed, floated for a while, had lights on it, sank, and was never found again. Now, that to me is proper UFOs. Okay, right there. Now we're talking. Seriously good versions thereof. So, 1969, Prince George, British Columbia, 3 unrelated witnesses reported a strange round object in the late afternoon sky, which radiated a yellow-orange light and appeared to ascend from 2,000 to 10,000 feet rapidly. This is good. Again, standard reporting, no fluff. In 1974 in Langenberg in Saskatchewan, and this one is entirely for Karina Britz and her husband Shane, who are out in Saskatchewan. I don't know if they're anywhere near Langenberg, but area farmer Edwin Furr claims to have seen 5 saucer-shaped objects hovering approximately 1 foot off the ground near a slough. Believing it to be a prank, Furr walked closer and noticed that the saucers were rotating at a high rate of speed. When his swather... Okay, here is a term for those of us who are not farmers. A swather, or windrower, is a farm implement. Okay, imagine a tractor with a giant lawnmower thing on the front for cutting small grain crops like wheat. You said, what time do you usually start your feeling sleepy? Laptop, I normally start at 10 o'clock South African time. That's GMT +2. Are you in South Africa, sir? Because if you are, then 10 o'clock in the evening, on each evening, not Sunday. Okay, 10 o'clock, not Sunday, every other day. And you are more than welcome to join us again. Okay, so his giant lawnmower wouldn't restart. He sat for 15 minutes watching the objects before they took off, too scared to move. He described the takeoff as being extremely fast, with no noise, and the objects emitting nothing but a grey vapor. Awesome, awesome, awesome. I will then bid you a good night, laptop, and see you tomorrow. Have a great one. Now, the Royal Canadian Military Police, who famously have no sense of humor and are very serious, had a report saying that they found 5 circles matching Furr's description of the objects. No physical evidence in the area indicated that somebody had driven in and made the circles. So finally, it's taken us bloody long enough, we have our first crop circle. Between 1975 and 1976, southern Manitoba reported several sightings of red glowing UFOs, sometimes described as mischievous or playful, sighted in the area. The UFO was nicknamed Charlie Red Star by the public. Was it the same one? Maybe it was. How do you know? I don't know. Oh no, I'm going to just keep, you know what? I'm going to keep inviting you until it damn well works. But throw up your comments, please. I'm dying to know what your opinion is. I do not like it that you are not winning at all. We will keep trying until we get you on sometime this week, because we always end up with the greatest rabbit hole conversations ever, and they're hugely popular with everybody. So we definitely have got to do this. I do not like that this is not working. I'm going to do a full restart of everything before the next live, just to make absolutely certain, so that you know. In 1978, Clarenville, Newfoundland and Labrador, a single sighting of a UFO by 12 separate individuals, always important, on the early morning of October 26th, near the Random Island. I love that it's called the Random Island. Canada's so cool. The object was reportedly oval-shaped with a fin on its tail. Individuals who spotted the object called the RCMP, and the dispatched Officer Constable James Blackwood witnessed the UFO hover at 100 feet above the water for around 1 or 2 hours before vanishing. Blackwood used a telescope specialized for drug surveillance to observe the UFO. Ah, maybe you said something naughty and it upsetted, or you showed something. Are you doing strip teasers on camera? You bad girl. I'm teasing, of course. She is far too quality a lady to do something like that. Something to do with the camera. Yeah, they occasionally throw up some kind of a ban for really weird reasons. I had one that came on, and then I couldn't go live, and then all of a sudden they said, no, we were wrong, and they stopped the ban. It was really, really strange, and I can honestly tell you that I do not understand at all what the heck sometimes happens. So it could be anything, Endless Thoughts, and I'm very sorry for that, because really and truly, so we've got a decent attempt to check out this UFO. Other eyewitnesses used binoculars. He shone his headlights and blinked at the thing, and the object reacted, blinking headlights or whatever they were back. So reportedly, Blackwood was attempting to contact pilots of the craft. It left no evidence of its appearance apart from the eyewitness testimony. You see, I told you that aliens are non-physical. In 2016, a separate sighting occurred in Clarenville regarding an incident who spotted lights hovering over the water there. And in 2020, apparently again. In 1990 in Montreal, in Quebec, witnesses reported a round metallic object of about 540 meters wide, holy crap, over the rooftop pool of the Bonaventure Hotel. Eyewitnesses saw H10 lights forming into a circle above them, emitting bright white rays. The phenomenon lasted 3 hours and moved slowly northward. While none could identify the lights, a few witnesses, according to the next day's report in La Presse, were ready to express their belief that they were visited by aliens. I want to be visited by aliens. Endless Thoughts, do you want to be visited by aliens? Maybe you are an alien. Oh. A few witnesses say they saw this thing and were interviewed on TV about it. and the Royal Mint commemorated the event with a glow-in-the-dark $20 silver coin, part of the Unexplained Phenomena series. Now, in 1997, in Trail, in British Columbia, two women standing on a bridge over the Columbia River waiting for a fireworks show on the evening of July 1st witnessed three small lights above them, and they quickly took off down the river, just a foot or two above the water. They zigzagged along the river, heading eastbound until they flew out of sight. The two women, who were strangers, looked at each other in awe, realized it was not part of the fireworks show, which hadn't yet begun because it was still daylight. You see, Endless Thoughts, I told you, aliens are not physical. They're a form of light. Intelligent light. 2010 in Harbour Mill, Newfoundland and Labrador. The RCMP initially stated the reports were due to a missile launch, but later retracted the statement, and the Office of the Prime Minister stated that the UFOs were not missiles. Due to Harbour Mill's proximity to Saint-Pierre and Miquelon, residents suspected French military activity, which was dispelled by an official statement by the French government. The RCMP referred to the event as an unexplained sighting, and NORAD stated that there were no known rocket launches at that time. The event prompted a Member of Parliament for the constituency Harbour Mill was in at the time, MP Jerry Byrne, to press the government for further information regarding the incident and criticized the Conservative government for its lack of transparency. Scary to look at. That, you know for a fact, is utterly untrue, my dear. There is no honesty in that at all. But yes, I agree. I'm glad your comments are coming through now. That matters to me. And I still want to know if you want to meet an alien. Do tell me. 2014, in Kensington, Prince Edward Island, while putting out a bonfire late in the evening on June the 4th in 2014, John Shepherd witnessed unusual lights in the sky over the Gulf of St. Lawrence, and he captured 22 minutes of it on his cell phone. That's pretty good going. Good for him. After reporting the incident to MUFON, I'm sorry, I will laugh at that acronym till I die. And they're investigating, concluding it to be a confirmed sighting. CBC covered the event. The next day, it released a follow-up article with a series of alternate explanations of what the event was, but none of them really sing. What was the question again? It went silent before I could hear. Do you want to meet an alien? Ta-da! Do you want to meet an alien? You want to eat one? Oh no, meat, not eat. I'm a bad typist. For some reason, my keyboard doesn't want to make this work properly. Do you want to eat one? Well, maybe they're good fried. You never know. Num num, aliens. Okay, here's a thing I didn't know. Nothing to do with the topic, but Did you know that New York is in Ontario as well? Ah, yes, good point. Good point. All life on Earth might. Well, if that's true, whoever sent the cockroaches and the mosquitoes, um, I want a word with them. Ah, yes, you might be an alien from a better place than here, I'm sure. Okay, so in 2014 in New York, Ontario, Sarah Chun witnessed a string of 6 or 7 diagonal flashing lights in the sky from the window near her dining table in the condominium in New York before going outside to her balcony to observe. She observed the flashing lights for 25 minutes, recorded 2 videos on her iPad, which were posted on her YouTube channel. So there you go. If you can, find Sarah Chun on her YouTube channel, UFOs. Um, Toronto Police's 3-2 division reported receiving several calls of the UFOs between 7 and 10 p.m. that night. Several police officers witnessed the lights, and one Toronto police officer who saw the lights speculated that it was a quadcopter launched from a building, but did not investigate while he was on bike patrol. The event was witnessed by many people, including Roxana Malecki, a local musician who had just come out of the movie theater due to a fire alarm and who posted a video to her Facebook account. Sebastian Setien, resident of New York, reported that he was entertaining guests while having a barbecue on his balcony and took a photo at 4:18 p.m. I know what a UFO is, but I don't know what a barbecue is. We don't barbecue, we braai. He and his guests came back out later around 8:40 and saw the lights, but he lost all internet connection while recording the video on his phone. It was also reported that there were minor power outages in Toronto, including the subway station, and at the Cineplex movie theater, which then tripped the fire alarm. Now, this is interesting, of course, um, because this fits to other events that we think might be real. The drawing of energy. They didn't send the mosquitoes or cockroaches, but small forms using a type of radiation, and then it developed into life. I still blame them. I'm sorry. The world has no place for mosquitoes. I'm sorry. So there were a lot of different explanations for these things, but we can absolutely say that there is much to be said for these sightings, which I think is great, purely because, I mean, they were well looked into. So huge props to Canada for doing things properly and giving us something seriously to talk about. Could we all be aliens? We might all be aliens brought here. I don't know. I'm in 2 minds on that regard. But then I could tell you a very interesting set of stories, some of which are slightly racist, that people have told me to explain humanity as things go along. And some of them get really quite wild. And I don't quite know how to take all of them. So, according to some of them, most of humanity are not actually wholly human. We may have either infernal or divine origins. But yeah, I don't know. It's an interesting point. Alien works too. There is no chance at all that there's no other life. None. Not in my mind. There's got to be. Scientifically, it would just be stupid to me. I'm going to say that. However, interesting point that was brought up in regards to your comment on Canadian television. Sky Canada project flagged several government departments and agencies that routinely receives UAP reports, including Transport Canada, the Department of National Defence, the Canadian Space Agency, and the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. And few of these organizations actually have any means to investigate these sightings unless they pertain to specific aspects of their respective mandates, such as national security, transportation safety, public safety, and so on. So, large numbers of these sightings are often overlooked. There's a huge amount that isn't reported that might be very, very important. And as a result, knowing more about other life and whether or not it's connected or even related to us isn't something that we necessarily will find out about because we're just not looking for enough information. And in fact, we do need to know more. Now, will we find more than this? I don't know. But nevertheless, there is a lot. Now, Chris Rutkowski, Canada's foremost UFO expert, was consulted by the Sky Canada project for its latest report, as he has logged around 25,000 reports from Canadians over the past 35 years as part of his Canadian UFO survey. A small fraction of the reported 1,000 odd annually defy simple explanation, which I think is fair. There's going to be a lot of rubbish, and there's going to be a lot of mistake, and there's going to be a lot of things that absolutely you can explain away when you know the facts. But the fact that there are quite a lot still that defy explanation is interesting, and therefore a properly run thing to help us understand what might be going on would only improve things. Now, in recent years, NASA has conducted an independent UFO study, and the U.S. Office of the Secretary of Defense erected the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, AARO, which is run by werewolves, now I made that up, to investigate UAP reports by military personnel. And this is partly to do with national security and so on and so forth. So, yeah, it would be good to have things done properly, to know more, to be able to tell whether or not we need to be worried. That's a great point. Also, if they are friendly, it would be nice to think that we approached them in a suitable manner rather than the normal human response to things is kill it and we'll dissect it and find out what it is. Which, let's face it, we've been kind of guilty of that way too often. I think that by and large, this is a problem. Now, what about crop circles? would like to know what can we say about crop circles? What are they? Why are they? Should we be concerned about crop circles? Is it some kind of weird alien signal that they're trying to tell other aliens? You know, it's like your Skyrim thieves marks. You know, safe to land here, locals friendly, can eat the cows, or don't stop here. They've got high explosive incendiary devices and might cause terrible things to your aircraft. I mean, fair enough. It's the kind of stuff I'd want to know if I was going to another planet. So, what are crop circles? Why are crop circles? Are they related to something other than aliens? Who's to say? And of course, what are the implications if we are the aliens? Oh, endless thoughts. Would it imply then that we came from a specific group of aliens as opposed to, and are all humans from the same group of aliens? I mean, might we turn around and say that one group is from one type of alien, another is from another, or I don't know. It's we're going to have to discuss crop circles. I'm going to find out a whole lot more because crop circles, interestingly enough, can be compared to certain things like the Nazca lines, the chalk cuttings in Britain, which really and truly are meaningless if you're standing on the ground. But if you're seeing them from the sky, suddenly it's important. But they were made way before anyone had flying machines, which seems to imply that there was a point to them somehow, and we're not sure of what it is. So, in that regard, we are going to need to talk about those kinds of things simply because I suspect it might matter. But in all of these discussions, we have found none so far to do with alien abductions. The topic apparently is very popular in Canada, with some cities such as Vancouver, Toronto, and Calgary being cited as hotspots, but we don't have definitive evidence supporting an actual occurrence of alien abductions. Now, Endless Thought says crop circles are strange. For a big circle flying object, it would be the best. You're quite correct. It would be a good place to land. Or it might be ground to air signals. So both seem to imply reasonable solutions if, as we have seen is often the case, saucers are the favored mode of transport for our alien brethren, then perhaps the circles relate to the fact that they are saucers rather than any other kind of ship in that regard, for the most part. Maybe that matters. Nevertheless, there's a lot of cases that have been spoken of that have UFOs, but only one seems to have any contact, if you will. And that was the one we discussed that really is starting to strongly seem to be a bit of a fake one. So nobody's really reported an abduction that I could find in Canada. Lots of UFOs, lots of sightings. And since 1989, one group said that they have encountered up to 14,617 celestial oddities that could not be explained properly, which is quite a lot. So it is pretty cool. Now, there were a couple of sightings, which included that of a Winnipeg nurse that said she found two small human-like creatures when she got home from work in 1992. She found herself taken in a hangar with several spacecraft and was taken inside one for a brief trip around the Earth. She found herself back at home with several hours of time missing from her life. So that counts as, I don't know, is that an abduction or is that road trip? I don't know. In 1989, a few people at a farm outside Montreal saw a bright light and heard a loud noise. They found a large circle of flattened green grass in a field. It remained green long after the grass surrounding it turned brown and died. How's that for a crop circle for you? Not bad. The study also indicates that the list of top 20 strangest includes things like the 1915 phantom invasion of flying objects that caused so much panic that the lights on Parliament Hill were shut off to prevent targeting by the enemy, whoever the enemy was. A Montreal woman said that in 1977 she saw a flying saucer land on a roof across from her home with two spindly creatures in tight-fitting suits. The creatures and their ship then disappeared. Here's a good one for you. So in 1980, Duncan, BC, a teenager in Duncan, BC, so the town is called Duncan, was so obsessed with UFOs that he built a huge model of one in his backyard. One day, following a series of UFO reports in the area, he announced to his friends that he was going to be taken away by aliens. Everyone laughed at him, and he was never seen again. Okay. That's a bit concerning. But yes, the question of alien abduction, what they're doing, why they're doing it, what's the point of doing it? Are we an experiment of aliens? I know that's a favored thing for you, Endless Thoughts, that perhaps we are indeed part alien and we are a test. Possibly to, once we've broken the world in the way we're probably going to do it, what remains will be able to survive because of being part alien and will then move on and do the better living. I don't know. It's a fair question. We do know that there's a lot of different aliens that may or may not tell us of different kinds of aliens. It's a bit of a strange one. So here is your sequence. Oh no, I'm sorry. Nothing wants to work today. Did the aliens wipe out the dinosaurs for us? Probably not. According to a very credible report, it had to do with change in the atmosphere. And that's what really did it, which is why mammals were able to take over, because it changed in favor, breathing wise, for mammals, which strengthened the mammals but became difficult for the dinosaurs. But here's how things will go if you get abducted. So, capture. The abductee is rendered incapable of resisting and taken from terrestrial surrounds to an apparent alien spacecraft. Examination and procedures then follow, invasive psychological and physiological procedures, and on occasion, simulated behavioral situations, training and testing, and or sexual liaisons. Conference. The abductors then communicate with the abductee to direct them to interact with specific individuals for some purpose, often using telepathy, but sometimes the abductee's native language. Tour. The abductees are then given a tour of the captor's vessel, though some say this one doesn't happen. And that really you're just being taken to multiple places around the ship for other reasons. Loss of time. You then lose time for whatever reason. Endless Thought says, I've never seen dinosaur bones. Does that mean I should not believe that dinosaurs existed? I have seen dinosaur bones. Jurassic World 2025. No, I didn't seen that one yet, so no spoilers, please. But I have seen dinosaur bones, real ones, and they were pretty cool. So dinosaurs definitely did exist. I do, however, believe they existed while humans were alive and running around together with them. I think that the timeline of history, such as we know it, is largely crap. We've got a lot of things wrong for a lot of different reasons. So after loss of time, we have return. The abductees are returned to Earth, occasionally to a location different from the one they were taken, or with new injuries or disheveled clothing. After that, coinciding with the immediate return, you may have a profound sense of love or a high, similar to those produced by certain drugs or a mystical experience, accompanied by a feeling of oneness with God, the universe, or with their abductors. Whether this is the result of metaphysical change, Stockholm Syndrome, or medical tampering is not necessarily clear. Aftermath. The abductee must cope with the psychological, physical, and social effects of the experience. Well, that's fair enough. I quite like this particular explanation for it, that can otherwise not possibly be considered to be useful to connect with what is or is not. Now, somebody pointed out something which I thought at the time was silly, then I laughed about, and now these days I sit here wondering if maybe they had a point. We've got so many weird people in the world. I mean, you go and look just on TikTok, and there are people out there that, yeah, they're kind of strange. These days, an alien could literally walk down the street playing a drum and would still not be the weirdest thing seen out there. Now, that said, maybe you like that, did you? Maybe it's not about aliens. Maybe they are angel-like entities here to enhance our spiritual awareness. Maybe they're conspiring with the government in a plot to enslave humans. Maybe they are breeding with us to create a new race of hybrids. Or, as Endless Thought said, we already are the hybrids. That's the point. Why are they abducting? Are they inserting tracking devices? Are we being monitored? Hard to say. These are questions that I think do need answering. Many abductees show that the understanding of what's going on requires a lot more data. Let's say that. We need to know, and in many ways, I think it is fair to say, by and large, we sort of don't. And therein lies the problem. But we have reached the end of our Canadian exploration. Now, I'm going to invite Endless Thoughts to you to try again tomorrow. I very much want you to join on. I think that we need to have a go when things fix with the computer. Will the angels tell me who the real God is? And will they tell me why God is so shy and hides away? I have a theory for you, okay? This is entirely going to be offensive probably to every religion ever, but this is my theory, okay? Whoever or whatever God might be, I don't think the angels know either. I think that they might be a higher being, a superior being, possibly an alien being. And what we have as our general story of like religion and the fall and all the rest of that is their history. They think they know, and their sort of high priest is the voice of God, but they don't know either who God is. And that's part of the reason why you had the split between so-called angels and demons. And we're really recording a giant argument of between a superior race that we as a lesser race have knowledge of and record of in that regard. But if the angels ever really did turn up, they wouldn't know either. I suspect that too. If it matters that much, on the one hand, why doesn't he turn up and give a press release? On the other hand, most religions would say something along the lines of, he did, Jesus, or he did, Muhammad, or whatever, which I suppose is fair. And I suspect if God did come in person and made an announcement on TV, human beings being human beings, we would still argue who was right and what he really meant. You may gather from my commentary that I am somewhat cynical about humanity. Just saying. So, yeah, I find it difficult sometimes to really know what the heck is going on, which I think matters. I think it matters a great deal. I think that we don't really know properly what the story is, if that makes any difference whatsoever. I could give a personal opinion, but I would absolutely be thrown off social media and probably be considered an abomination for life by everybody. But then I'm a terrible cynic. But with that, I am going to say that it is past midnight, and I'm going to wish you good night, my dear, and definitely see if I can't get things fixed so we can do something with you tomorrow. I hope you have a fantastic evening, and I agree with your comment 1,000,000%. God should not blame me for not believing. He should blame himself. And quite frankly, at this stage in my life, I don't. But I do believe in human beings and human purpose. And I think that even if God is real and exists, it's far more important to be a human being in this world than worry about what may or may not happen in an afterworld we know nothing about anyway. So, but we will take this up again. Have an absolutely wonderful night. We will try tomorrow. I absolutely do want you to go live with me. So until then, be truly blessed. Have a wonderful evening. And I will end as I always end. Sleep deep, sleep sweet, but sleep with one eye open. And maybe, just maybe, keep that holy object near at hand, or maybe a baseball bat, because it seems that there are indeed things out there that go bump in the night, and it's eminently possible that they may go bump for you.